So I'm going to go over some of Drabble conformity prompt argument writing tips for you. The prompt: in 2001, the American Scholar published an excerpt from a talk given by English author Margaret Drabble. In her talk, Drabble claimed our desire to conform is greater than our respect for objective facts. Using appropriate evidence from your reading, observation, and/or experience, write a carefully reasoned essay defending, challenging, or qualifying Drabble's assertion about conformity. To earn a 7, 8, or a 9, you need to be in consistent point of view, usually third person, could be first person, successfully make an argument and support it with specific, detailed, and appropriate examples, show with your examples, don't just tell your examples, have mostly correct grammar and syntax, a sense of style and voice, a great flow to your writing, and probably more than 500 words. So let's start with figuring out, did you write 500 words? So count the number of words in 3 to 5 lines and then figure out what the average is. Okay, let's say that it's 8. Then count the number of lines on a page going down and then multiply and then estimate how many words that you write in a typical 40-minute period. Is it above 500? If it's above 500, then you probably got a higher score. If it's below 500, you probably got a lower score. All right, so let's focus on a few things about the prompt. For starters, you had to understand what the word conform is, and you had to understand what objective facts were. So let's talk about conform. So conform, our desire to conform. So looking at the image, conform means everybody is going the same way, thinking the same thing, doing the same thing. So the orange fish is a nonconformist. Objective facts. So objective facts are things that can be proven. You have to take a stance. So you either strongly agree, or you strongly disagree, or you disagree. All right, so there's two sides that you could have for this particular argument. There's people basically conform, or people are unique, and there's no right or wrong. You can go either way. If you believe that people basically conform, you probably could have written about the American dream, kind of definition of successes, buying into stereotypes, accepting governmental atrocities in the name of progress, law and order and rules, or psychological behavior. And many of you mentioned an experiment about an air vent, which was great. You'd just gotten that probably in your psychology class, your AP psychology class. That was a perfect example. All right, if you wanted to take the other side and say that we don't desire conformity, you're disagreeing with the prompt, you could have talked about original thinkers and creative people like Van Gogh, Da Vinci, Steve Jobs, Martin Luther King, Jesus, Beyonce, etc., how they're all creative and they go against conformity. That's why they're famous. You could also talk about perhaps how these people suffer, they're misunderstood, they're assassinated, they take their own lives, they're visionaries, they might not see success in their lifetime, etc. All right, let's go back to the prompt. So the second part of the prompt was the conform is greater than our respect for objective facts. The third part of the prompt is words that you'll see frequently in an AP language argument prompt, which is reading, observation, and or experience. And you might see those plural as readings, observations, and or experiences. So let's talk about that. Okay, readings. Readings, if you're going to cite them, should be scholarly, scientific studies, politics, classic books. I would not use young adult, things that you read from the New Yorker or the Atlantic. So they're kind of highbrow pieces versus low culture pieces. And I'm sorry, there's a bias towards scholarly pieces. So in your arsenal of readings, be able to pull things out that are more scholarly than less scholarly. All right, observations, that's specialized knowledge. So this could be history, current events, human behavior. As I mentioned, scientific experiments are perfect. Science, technology, music, sports, art, and culture, but not typical teen life. and experiences. And I like to think of experiences are what you think and what you saw. So these are life experiences, but not, me and my friends at the mall, teen drama, travel, school related, things happen in classrooms, specific events that you witnessed or that you shared. I would avoid hypotheticals and generalities. All right, so now let's get into some excellence versus errors. So excellence, the prompt is the prompt, the quote is the quote. Just get to the writing. Try a 3-sentence intro, a grabber, a transition sentence, and then your claim or your argument, or even try a 2-sentence intro, just a grabber and an argument. I think some of you overwrote the introduction. Like if you have an introduction of more than 100 words, you're overwriting your introduction. So some errors. Okay, people complimented the prompt. Wow, this was a great quote. You don't need to say that. You restated the prompt. In other words, this means you don't need to define or provide an example of the prompt. I got it. Your reader has it. You compare the quote to another similar quote. You don't need to do that. Or you commented on the prompt, like, I think her quote was right on target. Just get to the writing. What's most important in these is the body paragraphs. So here's a model that I wrote for an introduction. This is a 2-sentence introduction. So as you can see, my first sentence that's in the blue, I pulled from the prompt a little bit of information to provide some context. So I listed the author, Margaret Drabble. I said that it was a quote on conformity, and then I kind of explained it in my own words, but I didn't rewrite it. I just explained it. Now in my second paragraph, my second sentence, which is my thesis, my claim, you can clearly see, I use semicolons, what I would be talking about in this essay. So I'm going to talk about the hysteria of the female minor characters in Arthur Miller's The Crucible, so that's reading and that's academic. The passionate misunderstandings of contemporary anti-vaccination advocates, that's current events. And the attitude of the men in my village when I was a Peace Corps volunteer in the late 1980s, and that would be personal experience. And then the second part to my claim is they all reflect Drabble's claim, representing both the insidious peer pressure and a lack of understanding of science and general knowledge. So you can see from my introduction that I'm writing to answer that prompt, and I've taken a clear side. Now this happens to be a 3-pronged thesis, but you don't have to do 3 body paragraphs. You could do 2 body paragraphs, which is perfectly fine. So here's my model body paragraph, and this is 217 words. So just imagine if this body paragraph has 217 words and my other body paragraphs have about the same. In my body paragraphs alone, I have more than 600 words. So when you consider the introduction and the conclusion, this would probably be about an 800-word essay. All right, so look at the red sentence. There's my topic sentence. Look at the blue and the orange sentences. I've alternated, and you can see that I've gotten sentence variety. I've got different size sentences. And then the last sentence in this body paragraph, Miller's play reflects Drabble's assertion of a preference for a narrow-sighted interpretation of sketchy laws and bogus evidence, standing in for reasoned intelligence and intellectual worldliness. Well, that goes back to my claim. So if you can kind of write, this is a template and it looks sort of academic at this point, but if you could get to this writing and then up the style and the tone, then you'll be writing the 8s and the 9s. All right, let's talk about excellence. So excellence, you've got a clear topic sentence, detailed and specific evidence, sentence variety, sophisticated command of vocabulary and language. I had 217 words in this paragraph, so it's a big, thick, juicy paragraph. And my last sentence brings the argument back to the claim. All right, now here's some excellence versus errors. So excellence, maintained, consistent point of view. First person is fine, third person is best. Try to avoid second person. There's really not a reason in a formal essay to use you. All right, don't speculate or hypothesize. Okay, it's better just to use examples that you know. So if you launched into, if you were to fail a test, okay, first of all, you're using you, and second of all, it's hard for the reader to relate to that. Give me a specific example. Bob failed the test. Okay, you can make it up. All right, point of view shift. Make sure that if you're using a singular person that your pronouns match. So if one were to do something, you have to use he or she. Someone is he or she because it's one person. Each is he or she. Everyone is he or she. Now, to avoid this, because he or she is awkward, just make it plural and say people. All right, overused pronouns, and when we get into, we're going to be doing a piece later on in the year where we have 3 men. All right, so if you're using he for all 3, how is your reader going to know who is the he? And then they say that. I saw a few people that wrote they say that. All right, so who's they? So instead of they say that, say General Electric or say the government, or specify the they. All right, so word choice does matter. Okay. Excellent, succinct, well-chosen, and appropriate diction that fits the writing task. Academic, college-level control of language, an attempt at sophisticated word choice is okay. You can mess up on a word. Remember, this is a draft, but avoid generalities, avoid overwriting, avoid using quarter words when a nickel word would do, avoid teen speak. Try to get the word thing, like, and nice out of your language, Common errors that you should know. At this point, you're a lot apart. These should not be in your writing. Take a stab at ethos, logos, and pathos. So appeal to the heart, appeal to the head, appeal to credibility and ethics. And we'll go over that more this year. So be thinking about that. Persuasive appeals are always good to use in arguments. All right, some more excellence versus errors. So excellence, imagery, ethos, logos, pathos, specific examples, clear and interesting details. Academics, errors, cliches, frivolous and silly word choice, wrongly identified people, or waffling and generalities. Excellence, 4 to 6 paragraphs or 2 to 3 pages of dense, detailed prose, and then remember the word bias. Okay. Errors, too short, incorrect paragraphing. I think there were a few that were just one big clump. Make sure that you, if you can't get to paragraphing, you can draw the paragraph mark, which is a backwards P with another line next to it, and that shows your reader when you change ideas. So if you're writing one big humongous paragraph, please tell your reader when you change. And then no conclusion, and you can have a 1-sentence conclusion. All right, excellence, active voice, confidence voice, an original sense of style or tone, humorous, witty, sarcastic, bitter, nostalgic. It elicits emotions and connections. It makes me as your reader want to connect with your writing. An understanding reader and audience. All right, some errors. Passive voice. Passive voice makes whatever the action is distant, so your reader can't relate. Formulaic. So it looks like you were there's a routine to your writing. It could be very scholarly or academic, but the most you can get from something that's formulaic is probably a 6 or a 7. Avoid telling your reader what to do. Now, I know a lot of you are science writers, you've done research papers, and there is a time in science where you, as the researcher, would tell your audience what you're going to do. Next, I will discuss. However, in an essay like this, you want to avoid that. So any of these phrasings, okay. All right, let me go back. There we go. Okay, doesn't take into account the reader and the audience. So make sure that you have a unique voice, a sense of style. Make sure that you make a clear argument. Your argument is clear, consistent, and comprehensive. Make sure you don't straddle the fence. Make sure that you do address the counter argument if possible. Okay, let's talk about some goals for next time. So number 1, finish. All right, try to complete your essay in 40 minutes. We're going to have to work to a point by May where we write 3 essays in 2 hours. So if you can get an essay done in 40 minutes and then start on the next one, you'll be able to successfully write 3 essays in the 2-hour period. More than 500 words. So now you know how many words you get per essay, so let's make sure that you write consistently 500 words or more for each essay from this point on. Let's do a shorter intro. So if you overwrote the intro and had more than 100 words in your intro, how about if we try a 2 or 3 sentence intro in our next go round? Specific details. If you had generalities and didn't really get down to the nitty-gritty, try specific details. Point of view. So remember, they is plural and use people. And if you're going to use a singular setup, you have to use he or she, and that becomes awkward. And stay in one tense. All right, you can do it. I believe in you. So we're going to be writing again soon. Take some of these tips to heart, and I look forward to reading your writing next time around.